And so, yeah, it got really toxic at home. So I ended up packing my bags and took off to Japan, found a job there.
Just
I
by
can, yeah,
yourself?
by myself. I called my parents from the airport. It's like, yo, I'm going.
Hello, everyone. Hello, listeners of B-Side. Today we have Olivia as our guest.
Hello, hello.
Woo!
Woo!
So I won't say much. I'm going to give her the chance to introduce herself. So, Olivia, you could just obviously give your name, age, occupation,
Yep.
something like how long you've been attending CCPC,
Mhm.
and how about like where you serve in church?
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. My name's Olivia On. I'm currently 37 years old. We'll be turning 38 next month. Woohoo.
Woo!
Uh, yeah, represent. Let's see. Occupation. So I'm currently a consultant for state government. So my line of work has been in regulatory compliance, making sure, people who are running these facilities serving the vulnerable population are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And, just figuring out ways how I can better partner with them so that way they can serve the population they are. Let's see. Attending CCPC. Wow. I think I've been attending CCPC since 2018,
Okay.
the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, I'd
Okay.
have to say. And the ministries that I'm currently serving in, well, Praise Team being one of them, is the main. And just recently, I just stepped into the co-coordinator role for Bridges Ministry. I have the pleasure of working with my co-coordinator Alex Ham and Pastor Albie on a more closer level. So yeah, I've been learning a lot lately. Yeah, so yeah, here I am and ready to just talk about whatever topics we have prepared for
Yeah,
today. So
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Real quick, did you grow up in Nova or yeah,
Mm,
yeah. Could you tell us more about that?
sure. So I grew up in Maryland. So fellow
Right.
Marylander, I know we have a couple at our church. So grew up in Maryland all the way through high school, went to college in Virginia. Our family moved to Fairfax actually back in '05,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been here ever since.
Okay,
Hmm.
yeah. You and I have a similarity where we're both not from Nova, like we didn't
Mm.
grow up in Nova, so fellow non-Nova person.
Woohoo, woohoo. And you know what? I'd say I think we bring a different perspective because, yo, I mean, yeah, a lot of y'all like Nova Korean natives, you guys are a different breed. So I guess all of us, not from Nova, we're trying to spice it up a little bit, but that's okay. Everyone has to be represented.
Yeah, yeah. My first exposure to the group of Nova people was
Mm,
in college. And so, yeah,
mm,
definitely some differences, definitely some um, perks for me as someone who grew up with like
mm,
a not big Korean American population at all. And so,
mm,
yeah, so it is definitely different.
mm,
At least it was for me.
mm, mm.
All right. So, I don't know if you know, but on our podcast, we
Uh-huh.
do usually ask this like hot take question, right? And so
Okay.
we're going to ask you as well, since you are our guest here today.
All right.
What is like an unpopular opinion you have? It can be about anything.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. This is a really good question. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is, because I think I spend a lot of time in the workplace,
Hmm.
and just it's been ingrained in me where, oh, you shouldn't be bringing your personal life into, being a professional at the workplace, especially if you're going through something. You just have to put on your game face on, and you shouldn't really let people know that you're going through it, right? I think it's really naive of us to think that, you know, personal life is definitely going to play a role and a factor as to how we're, just producing, being productive, how we're interacting with others. I think, especially, it's important in the workplace to allow those kind of conversations, especially with the trusted group, whether that's with your direct supervisor or colleagues, to just say, hey, like, I'm not going to lie. I'm going through a really hard time right now in my personal life, whether that's relational, it could be illness, whatever that is. And I think that it's really important for you to have that dialogue and feel safe, but also trying to kind of figure out like, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
We can't afford not to work, right? Or at least
Yeah.
most of us can't. So, how do you sort of navigate that? And I think, yeah, I think that is quite unpopular and it adds a lot of pressure. And I think that especially if it's an organization where it's so much focused on you have to constantly produce and you have results that you need to meet, it's there's no room for that interpersonal relational piece. And I think that's so cute, so valuable. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole how it adds pressure. I
Mm.
really agree with that. And I think for those of you who didn't know, I'm working towards being in the mental health field. And so I
Mm.
think people in our field have maybe a bit of an advantage
Mm.
in that aspect because, I think we're able to have more grace towards each other when we're not able to show up. And
Mhm.
for people who are providing therapy, sometimes if your personal life is not straight, you can't really provide that help for others. So
Mm.
that is something that I've noticed and realized during my internship that my supervisors have provided for me is that grace and that room to bring a bit of my personal life into it and have that still be okay. So I'm hoping that that does change for the rest of the population in terms of their workforce. So we're actually going to go into something a bit more, I don't know. I think it's a bit more fun because I like would you rather questions
Okay. Oh,
because it
snap.
makes me think and it makes me really
Uh-huh.
debate and defend my
Okay.
opinion, I guess. But all right, here it is.
Okay, let's go for
Would
it.
you rather date someone
Uh-huh.
where you have to tell them everything, like what to do, but they do it successfully and willingly, and they
Mhm.
do it well, and they
Mhm.
do exactly what you tell them to do, right?
Mhm.
You just have to tell them every single thing.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
would you rather date someone where they absolutely hate being told what to do, any suggestions or anything, but they get it right like 70, 75% of the time?
Are they Christian?
Let's say both of them are
Okay.
Christian.
Oh, okay. So I think there's pros and cons to dating both
Yeah, let's
types,
talk it
right?
out. Let's talk it
So,
out.
uh, I'm the type of gal, I think just kind of looking back at my dating experience, I very much took the lead and I was the one that pursued. And I'll just say that I'm a very controlling person. I'm really working hard and just letting that go and just relying on God more. But yeah, that's just been my go-to because I think that just knowing that I can control it and tell the person what to do, I sort of anticipate what the expectation, the outcome is going to be. And I think that also stems from past experiences of people not meeting those expectations and getting hurt because it was a situation where, let's say, I'm pouring in 100% and it's not being reciprocated. Yeah, your feelings get hurt because, especially if you're the type of person that if you do, or if you're intentional about really dating this person and you're investing into this person, and if they're not really reciprocating, not that you're doing that for them to reciprocate, but, it's like if it's not, I say, like balanced or matched, it's, yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, oh, out of the two, I rather date the latter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the latter, as a reminder, was they absolutely hate being told what to do,
Yeah.
isn't good with suggestions that you give, but they get it right about 70 to 75% of the time.
Yeah, that's fine because I'm also the same type of person. I don't like being told what to do either. So, I think learned the hard way. So I don't think I would want to tell that person what to do either. And so
I
we'll just kind
see.
of be together and figure things out and get 70% of things right together most of the time. We'll navigate it together. We'll be in the same boat. How about that?
All right. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. I was thinking about this as I
Yeah.
was like trying to come up with some would you rather question.
Uh-huh.
And I still haven't come to a conclusion
Mm.
because I, as I've been experiencing like how my dating life, it's like I get that we're not mind readers. So I
Mm-hmm.
get that I'm going to have to explicitly say certain things that I don't want to be explicitly saying and I wish they would
Mm.
just get.
Yeah.
But when I think about having to do that for every little thing, I'm like, oh my
Mm.
gosh. But then on the other hand, I'm like, how is there going to be growth when they don't want to be told what to do ever? Or, I mean, it's not even that, just like they're not open to suggestions or like, how is that
Mm-hmm.
conversation going to go? But, anyways, you gave your answer and that's what we were wanting. So,
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of want to dig a little bit more deeper.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's I think with the latter though, it's especially just kind of if especially if I'm wanting to date this person, I'm obviously going to try to invest more time in really trying to understand why they
Hmm.
don't like being told what to do, right? And me being the same way, I can immediately relate to that and identify, with them as to what that's like and why. But I think just to that specifically, it's maybe just kind of catering to that person instead of telling them what to do, just being more like inviting. It's like, let's try this out. It doesn't have to be perfect. But like you said, it allows for room for growth. It allows, I think, to really just getting to know one another. Because, we're all like, timing is different in how we grow. And I think that just progress it's in itself too. I think hopefully if that person is mutually interested in getting to know me and they're invested, okay, well then have that open dialogue. And it's like, we clearly don't like being told what to do. We don't want to step on each other's toes, but okay, can we at least like talk about and agreeing to like figure certain things out? Yeah, that's the way I
Yeah.
feel like an adult relationship should be like, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do agree with that.
Okay.
So can I ask you, is this too
Yeah,
personal? But
go
can
for
I
it.
ask you, are you currently dating?
I am not.
Oh, are you open to it though? Are you
Of course I am.
okay? Are you actively looking or are you just, very open? It's just
I would say I'm open. I'm not actively looking, but I'm
okay.
definitely open. So yeah, I'm gonna go into that a little bit, but I've never dated a Christian guy. So it's always been non-Christian men.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that, goes with that, but I think just, even within my journey, I mentioned I was a person of being in control, wanting to be in control. Yeah, I just am still working on being patient and waiting, like what that waiting period is like with God and God's timing. Because I'm so quick to try to, I act too quickly. That can be a good thing, but it's also just not so great sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, it can be reckless at times, especially when you jump into a relationship that you shouldn't be jumping into. And you're caught in a situation where you're emotionally attached to that person. And now you're like, oh no, what do I do?
Mhm.
And then, you have to break up with them. And that's never easy for the person who's breaking up or the person who's, getting dumped.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's been interesting, but I will say that I think this period in my life where I'm investing more time in getting to know God. And just during this time of being single, again, it's, you know, really trying to hear like his message and what he has in plan for me, but also learning how to be patient and wait.
Yeah, when you mentioned how you've only dated
Yeah.
non-Christians, were you able to ever get a chance to think about why that might have been?
Yeah. I think this is just me
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
And, I know that, like, for me, I just found myself as not like the typical, like, attractive Korean American gal that,
Mhm.
my other Korean male counterparts would be attracted to. Um, Also, I think that, you know, with my just personality and just me kind of taking charge and being very independent, like, I've learned that like I don't give men the opportunity to feel needed in the sense of like wanting to help in a way where they can sort of show that, oh, I'm a reliable person. Like, you can actually depend on me. Yeah, I was not good at that.
Would you?
I was a huge tomboy growing up, not gonna lie. And
Yeah.
I think my family, like upbringing, my parents, obviously first generation immigrants. My brother and I, we learned at a very young age to, working at our, family businesses, how hard it is to, earn a living in this country as an immigrant. So a lot of values were instilled in us at a very young age, and both my parents were working 6 days a week. So I was pretty much having to raise my younger brother. Just being very independent at a young age, and especially having a father who is very militaristic,
Mm.
and talking to me like 6 year version of me, telling me, Olivia, if your mom and I get shot at the store, guess what? Don't rely on your aunties or your uncles. Like you're responsible for your brother.
Oh,
And
wow.
for a 6 year old child to be told that, it's I'm like, what? You guys are gonna get shot and you're gonna die.
Yeah.
So that really just shifted like how I needed to carry myself, and that I needed to be the strong one in the family to really help out my parents, be there for my brother. And so imagine just growing up with that mindset. And I think a lot of the times, especially when I tried to date someone, I think I attracted a lot of people who were um didn't have that trait in the sense of being decisive, like leading. And yeah, it's been my track record. Yeah.
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 So I'm thinking
Mm.
because the initial question I asked was like, why might that have been that it
Mm.
was you turned out it turned out that you were dating non-Christians. Can I say maybe it's because those men weren't able to have the ability to kind of know what leading as a man would look like because they're not in the Christian community? Because, as a
Mm.
Christian, you kind of learn like um, being a spiritual leader looks like, what being a
Right.
leader as a good older or, good brother in Christ looks like,
Right.
and how serving in the church, like that could be aspects of leading. Like,
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I think even though I grew up in a very Korean Presbyterian church, like from the age of 6 all the way up to, I'd say, high school, right? Before going to college, we had a lot of sisters and a lot of women at our church. We didn't have many young male figures who served in ministry. And
mm,
so, that wasn't a norm growing up. So just didn't have access to that. Didn't really see like, younger, even college students who were serving in that capacity. Was always the sisters. So have been very much surrounded by strong Christian women. And then even my father, he didn't come to accept Christ until, he went bankrupt. And, you know, he lost everything. Thank God my mom still held on to the one dry cleaning store. And that's when he came back to the house, to the family, and accepted Christ at the time of need. But even with my dad, he struggled in
mm,
his faith. So didn't really have a lot of strong Christian men in my life growing up. And I would say, there were times in my life, even in college and post college, that I definitely went away from God and loved the world more at that time. And so those are the times when, I did date non-Christian men. And yeah, that's my thing. And then also, yeah, I've been married once. So let's put that out there. That's a disclaimer. So in that period of dating, I did end up, so my dad and I had a big falling out,
mm.
right? So it was post college, that was 2008. The job market took a big hit. Those of us who graduated, ooh, we had a hard time finding jobs. Um, and my dream was to eventually become like a foreign service officer, work for the State Department. My undergrad was in IR and Asian studies.
I see.
Yeah, so it didn't work out quite the way I wanted. And then, of course, my dad was like, "Oh, you should go to law school because all of your cousins are corporate attorneys, right?" And that was almost like a competition that he had with his like second oldest brother.
Mm.
And so for me, especially as a young child, like I just did not like being told what to do. I had a problem with authority big time. I was that rebellious child, right? And so, yeah, it got really toxic at home. So I ended up packing my bags and took off to Japan, found a job there.
Just
I
by
cannot, yeah,
yourself?
by myself. I called my parents from the airport. It's like, yo, I'm going. And yeah, that was me. And that was the start of Olivia's life of being away from God. Definitely got to experience that part of the world. Met some very interesting people. I don't want to say that I regret those decisions because I definitely there were a lot of sort of lessons that I've taken away from that period of my life. But yeah, I think ultimately when things got really toxic with my parents, that's when I just was looking to run away,
Mm.
like escape. And I think that was the first time that happened, right? And so came back from Japan, tried to reconcile with my parents, ended up going to grad school for education, and ended up with a teaching job and uh, was going to church here and there, but wasn't fully like committed to ministry or anything like that. But yeah, ended up meeting the guy that I was going to be married to for 3 years. Yeah, and he was a non-believer. There were so many red flags during that time. But then that was also another escape that, even when things got better, my father and I still just, we were not seeing eye to eye on a lot of things. And so, yeah, at that time I made the choice. It's like, oh, I think I really love this guy. He seems to be really nice. And, he seems to really balance me well. And, I met him at a time in my life where I'm like, yeah, I can see myself like building a family with this guy. And he seemed to be open to going to church here and there. But just looking back, it's there's a reason why God was trying to signal me, but at that time you don't know, you don't see it.
What would you say were some of those red flags or signals that in hindsight you were like, oh, okay, yeah, God was trying to tell me, I just couldn't see
Mm.
it then? What would you say were some of those things?
Again, like that whole relationship was controlled. Like I controlled it in the sense of that, it's like this is one thing in my life that I want it to go right for once. Like I want to protect it. I don't want my parents to get in the way of it. Like this is coming from me and my decision. And yeah, like just even like leading up to the marriage, my parents were having a huge fallout. Like, they're divorced now, but it was a huge fallout and I got sort of wedged in between the both of them while they were going through that whole situation. Um, and, just even with his parents, they weren't fully accepting of me because I wasn't Caucasian.
Mm.
So yeah, that was the whole situation there. And ultimately he basically yeah, chose me over his family, which I did not, ask for. I didn't want to get in the way, but ultimately that's the decision he made. And just yeah, there are a lot of things that occurred during leading up to the marriage and then during the marriage. Yeah.
Yeah. And throughout your sharing, I'm hearing the themes of independence and control coming
Hmm.
in that you mentioned.
Hmm.
So now, though, like, what does it look like for you to push away from your desire for independence?
I would say, I think because of my insecurities of my past, even when I attended CCPC, I had, been officially cut off, tied, had the divorce, but I still had that shame of
Mm.
being, still Korean American and a divorcee and having this past, like I'm undesirable, I'm unworthy. Definitely needed, I came so broken when I first attended CCPC and, I got plugged into praise team right away because that's the one safest place that I know that would hold me accountable to at least show up to church, right? Um, but just yeah, that's when my path to healing started. But it's been a journey. It's been a journey. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So is it safe to say or safe to assume that you kind of found community at CCPC?
Yes, community, I think the accountability piece is huge. I think that where I'm at right now, it's because of the insecurities that I've had before. It's I shunned people out
Mm.
because I didn't want them to know about my past. I didn't want them to know about me because I thought that they would judge me and see me differently than, who they just know of me based off of, just praise team or just what have you. Um, and because of that, yeah, like I was the only one holding myself accountable, and that's not enough. God intended us to be in community, and with that, now that I've sort of just let that part of my life go, I'm meaning letting the insecurities go, letting the shame, the guilt, all that go. It's My community has shown so much love and grace. And I almost regretted that. Like, why did I keep myself from experiencing this? Like, I so needed that. And so, yeah, now I feel like I'm not really missing out on anything. I think this is how God has really intended, us to live and be in community, a loving community, a supportive community where you can be yourself, be open, and we're all broken people.
Yeah, of course.
We all have a past. Mine just seems to be very scenic, is what Pastor Albert has mentioned. It's like, Olivia, you led a very scenic life. Um, yeah, I did. And I think by me sharing sort of like my testimony, I guess, if you will, I think at least with some of the folks I've shared my story with, they've expressed, it's allowing them to open up more about sort of their internal struggles and their sort of their story pretty much. And it's giving them the courage to really speak up, which I feel so honored. Like, it's great because I think by sharing your story, that's also part of the healing process, right?
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, just me being that controlling type of person, very stubborn, one who's gonna just see it through. Like, yeah, I know my tendencies, and so now that I'm aware, um, I think the shift has been that if I catch myself wanting to take control of the situation of every aspect of my life, I repent to God. It is a deep conversation with God where it's like, okay, God, like you know me so well. Like I'm having this moment right now. Just please keep me grounded. Like remind me that ultimately, like you know me best. You're gonna do me good. Um, and everything's in your hands. It's gonna work out.
Yeah. Amen to that. Everything's going to work out, when God is in the picture, when we're repenting. Because sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds, like to sit
Yeah.
there and really make yourself vulnerable to God. It's not as easy as we think it may be at
Mm,
times. And
mm,
so, as you are kind of in this journey of learning how to let go of your control,
mm,
really seeking community again,
mhm,
letting go of that super strong, independent Olivia.
mm.
What do you think is the proper, like, give and take, the proper relationship for Christians to have between independence and reliance?
Whoa, that's a really good question. I think definitely independence in the sense that you have a choice, right? God has given us choice in whatever we do. And every small to big choices that we make each day, think in the sense of that we get to choose and act it out according to his will, but that needs to also be paired with relying on God, right?
Mm.
So if we fully rely on God and commit and submit to him, then that confidence that comes from God in order for us to lead an independent life or self sufficient life as a Christian, meaning we're going to discipline ourselves, we're going to be intentional about how we live our lives, the choices we make, being plugged into a community, maybe serving in ministry, especially those of us who are spending a lot of hours in our days at work. That could be our field of ministry. So I think those need to go hand in hand. Like it needs to be paired. But ultimately, the common theme is that all that needs to be stemmed from our relationship with God, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So independence and reliance is a partnership where independence kind of looks like the free will we were gifted by God. However, that reliance is just really ultimately being on God's side, doing what
Hmm.
God is telling us to do, right? That
Hmm.
obedience part.
Obedience part is huge. And I think, especially those of us who are sort of control freaks, We have a hard time with that.
Yeah, yeah.
But God will definitely put you in your place. I was so stubborn that it took him breaking me down physically, where I caught shingles. I was 250 pounds. I was depressed. And the only position that I could find myself like not in pain was like on my knees and elbows in prayer position.
Wow. Wow. God literally
He broke me down.
broke you
He broke me
down.
down saying, you need to repent. Like, I can't allow you to make, continuing to control your life in whichever you think that is the best for you, because it's not.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
like, it's time for you to rely on me now.
Wow. Ah, that, these words are all so powerful. I really relate to a lot of them. As our time comes to an end, though, I'd actually like to ask you
hmm
one last thing.
hmm
And that is, who is someone that has influenced you in your spiritual walk?
Ooh, okay. So, you know how I mentioned that I grew up in a very Korean Presbyterian church from the
Hmm.
age of 6 to high school. So, I had a youth pastor that I met in elementary all the way through high school. And Pastor Kim Chung-sung 목사님 now, but at the time he was Kim Chung-sung 전도사님.
Ah,
And he was so patient with me. I'll give you an example. So, obviously, because both my parents are working at the store 6 days a week, anytime we had like Friday service or like youth, like Saturday, like events, he would always show up to my house and give my brother and I rides. And at that time, we didn't really have cell phones. So he would show up at the same time. And there were times I must like confess that I didn't want to go. So I wouldn't leave the house. And he would wait. And he knew we were in the house. But he would just wait there for like 15 minutes. And, if we didn't come out, he would just, drive away.
yeah.
But I would see him the next day at church on Sunday. He's like, Olivia, it's like, oh, I guess you weren't home, but I'm still going to be coming. And I just want you to know that you're always welcome to come because you're a part of this church community. And, I don't want you to miss out on these events. And so, or the fellowship gatherings. And, yeah, he was just really patient with me growing up and just knowing sort of my family situation and, like always praying for us. And he just had a way with us, like in how he talked to us is like very much just gentle, was always there. He was like the one church adult figure that we like all the kids trusted. And he was fun
Wow.
to hang out with too. And it was a very traditional church, so even with in worship and praise, we weren't even allowed to play drums because that was considered worldly music. So he was like our past he was our youth pastor that actually he was able to get permission to get the drums and incorporate that in the band, and that was huge at the church. But fast forward, CCPC, I would have to say Pastor Albert.
Mm,
I think just through praise team, I've really have gone to know him. He's only what 3 years older than I am, so I really look up to him as an older brother as well. And Palby, like he's such a great listener. I just think that he's been very just again patient, kind, generous in the sense of just and genuine
yeah.
also, especially when he's just checking in on you, and very understanding, and isn't quick to judge, especially if you've missed several practices and you're not serving on the regular rotation for praise team because you're busy. You know how that goes. But yeah, just shout out to Pat Palby. He's been there. Like, when I first attended, I was so scared about people finding out about my past
Yeah.
and having trust issues, right? Like it took me a good year and a half, 2 years to even tell Palby my half of my story. And then, even when I told him, I was just like worried as to like, oh my God, like, what is he gonna think of me? But he like prayed for me and he was like, Olivia, I wouldn't have known. And I just, respect you that much more. And, like God loves you so much. Like, just, I really want you to know that. I was like, and he was like, you're worthy of his love. I'm like, absolutely. I didn't believe it at the time, but I am now. I believe it.
Yeah. And if you had to, well, I guess first,
Mm.
I would like to ask, like, are there aspects of Pastor Kim and Pastor Albert that you try to emulate now? And if so,
Mm.
what would be like one word to describe those aspects that you're trying to emulate?
Okay, so even just seeing both of those role models like serving in their ministry, they're very genuine and intentional, but also the holistic approach of doing life together.
Mm.
Just because they, held the pastor title, there wasn't really like, like they were placed on a pedestal. It's like, oh my God, he's a 목사님. Like, we can't really hang out with him. But I felt like both pastors in my life, like they've really showed that it is doable. We can do life together and, pretty much go like witness each other's growth and faith, but also the life stages as we're getting older together. That I think is so gem and key. Like I yeah, I think and also now serving in Bridges, I'm also trying to reach out to the younger brothers and sisters that I probably normally wouldn't have spoken to
Mhm.
because in my mind I was like, what would they I mean, would they even want to talk to someone who's 10 plus years older than them? But I'm starting to find out that, oh my gosh, they've been waiting for like an older sister to just reach out to them and just really like get to know them, like hang out. And, I mean, not to say I'm going to like tell them how to live their life, not at all. But if at all, just kind of hearing sort of their struggles and their current life situation or what they've struggled with before. And then I, in turn, can just share sort of how I navigated certain situations and what not to do, a lot of what not to do. And so I think they've been very receptive to that, which I'm so grateful for. And so, yeah, I think even with the vision of, I don't know if we're going to continue to call it upper bridges, but those of us 30s plus single folks in attending CCPC, I think, yeah, that's I think one role that those of us who have a heart to do that is to really connect with our younger brothers and sisters and just be there for them, be an ear, and for them to know that oh yeah, like I can reach out to this older sister brother to just feel get the support or some advice and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think that takes humility, which is what
Mm,
I've been hearing regarding, Pastor Kim and Pastor Albert, and what you're
mm,
trying to emulate is that humility to be able to reach out to those who may not be in the same life stage as you, who may
mm,
you may not have been more prone to talk to and things like that, right?
yeah.
And as someone who is still a part of the in quotes younger bridges, lower bridges, um yeah, I can for sure say for myself that
Mm,
um, I do enjoy the times with the older brothers and sisters, and
mm.
I do look forward to the time of that. So, for all the older brothers and sisters listening out there, feel free to reach out to us younger ones because we are always open and willing to meet
That's
with you
great.
guys. We don't take it for granted. We are grateful for it. So, yeah.
Mm.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing, Olivia. All
Thanks
of
for
this,
having me.
yeah, all of this was so great. You were so vulnerable. I
I
think
feel exposed. I am truly now. I seriously have nothing to hide. Truly, now my business is out there. But you know what? I know that even after sharing this, there are still going to be people who are going to judge me, which is fine. But I think the difference is now that because I've totally submitted my life to God, it's going to be fine. And ultimately, if those people, if they're going to judge me, that's okay. We can talk about it. If you have balls enough to come up and talk to me about it, let's talk about it. Why you
yeah,
got to be judgy?
yeah, make it an open conversation.
Absolutely. Let's get to know each other.
Yes, absolutely. And this is exactly what that is for. So,
Great.
again, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for sharing. And listeners of B-Sides, that's a wrap
All right.
for
Peace out.
today.